Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people, really across the state of Mississippi, who are working in the trenches to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. And man, we've had a series of great shows recently, and I just want to encourage you to look back. I appreciate the support. I've had the opportunity recently to post a couple of things on my personal Facebook page, and it's what I've posted is there for the public to see, and I've made a couple of posts about Doge and about how I see the media situation today. And if you're interested, you should go take a look. In fact, one of them in particular, I looked at the metrics on it. Not that the metrics matter, but I was just curious how many people had been engaged. And around 73,000 people had been engaged over the course of 2 columns that I wrote, which tells you people are wanting to get perspective, and I'm happy to share mine. We had a great visit with Laurie Jackson last week from coming to us from Ukraine. She's been a good friend of mine. She's a missionary working in Ukraine and someone I really have a tremendous amount of respect for. And you get her perspective on what we're seeing right now, and you get to learn about what their organization is doing these days. I had the opportunity a few months ago to have Ferrell Alman on from SF Alman, and we talked about how things are going in his small business and the things that he's doing to continue to have fine success as an entrepreneur, he and his wife. And during the conversation, though, we talked about the Gulfport Municipal Election Commission, which he serves on. And I thought it'd be a good idea to circle back with Ferrell and find out there's been some tweaks to the process and to learn a little bit more about the Election Commission in general. I think we should all want to be involved locally. Really, every election is an extremely local thing. And Ferrell will help me make that point here shortly. So without any further ado, my friend Ferrell Alman. How you doing, Ferrell?
Doing well, Ricky. Good morning to you in this busy election season.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, how's your business doing?
Business is doing well. Yeah, doing very well. You know, we've had the cold weather, that's for sure, and that little snowmageddon we had. I'll tell you what, a retailer buys gloves every 2 years, and this was the year with that snow. I sold out of gloves, so and jackets and everything. So, yeah, I'd love to have a little snow every year.
Well, listen, I've always been impressed with what you and your wife have done to build a business that is adapting constantly to the changing trends and listening to your customers and making sure you meet their needs. And it's been wonderful to be able to tell your story over the past couple of times we spent time together. But you're also a volunteer in the community in so many different ways. But one of them is the Gulfport Municipal Election Commission. And the more you experience what you do on that commission, the more you know how important it is for people to be not only to vote, but to be involved in the process. And you've been really committed to that. Why don't we start with just tell us a little bit about the commission, who's on it, how do they get appointed, and so on.
Yeah, well, I always like to say when I kind of talk about it is, as Tip O'Neill said, all politics are local. And so one needs to get involved in the local election process. And the Gulfport Municipal Election Commission runs the general election for the city of Gulfport. It's 5 commissioners. We're all appointed by mayors. I was appointed by George Schlogel back in, I guess it was 2012, 2011. And then every 4 years, it's renewed with all the commissioners. And it's 5 folks. We've got Dr. Brenda Matthews and also Mrs. Cindy Creel, Mrs. Stephanie Norris, and also Ms. Marcy Wilson. So there are 5 of us. And it's all based on statutes. All of this is based on statutes in Mississippi for your population sizes, how many commissioners you have, et cetera. And so with that, we run the general elections, and which will follow the primaries. We also do special elections, which this is the first time we've had a human element involved in a special election when the Ward 5 came open when Miles Sharp resigned. He had moved out, and so we had to elect a new one to take his place to serve these last few months, which they could have appointed someone, but they wanted to have a special election, and so we were brought in to run that special election. So we are called on to do those types of special elections. We also did a special election for the Gulfport school bond issue years ago. We ran that election, and then also the Mississippi Power Company that license agreement that has to be renewed every 25 years. Well, it fell within our reign of that 25 years, so we did that special election. But we do the general elections. That's when the executive committees, the Democrats and the Republicans, they have the race between all their candidates that they've qualified to run in the Republican primary and the Democrats in their primary, which, of course, held on the same day, which will be April 1st this year will be the primary. And they will determine who their candidate will be to represent them in the general election, which will be in June 3rd. And so that's when we take over to run that general election based on the two candidates that they put forward, plus any independent candidates that are not going to be affiliated with Republican or Democrat that want to run as an independent. Then we qualify them and put them in the race. And then we run the general and determine who's going to be the mayor and all the new councilmen for the city of Gulfport.
So, Ferrell, when you think about how Mississippi does it, photo ID and so on, it's amazing, really, that in some areas of the country they actually make it illegal to ask for an ID. I mean, how do you have secure elections if you don't do it the way Mississippi does it?
I don't know either. An ID is required for a little bit of almost anywhere you go for everything. And how important is it, for an election where you are going to put somebody forward to represent you? Well, you want to make sure that the people out there that are casting their vote along with you are also citizens and are legal and registered voters and everything. And you want to make sure that they're part of the process because we all, need to follow the rules. That's what makes this country great.
Well, we've also seen recently efforts to maybe tweak our system a bit. I think the bill that Senator Jeremy England is trying to shepherd is a good one because it's about verified in-person early voting. And, it's something I think we need to continue to do. But when you're involved in an effort like this, you really get a sense of how much care there is in making sure that one person's vote counts and it's being done in a way that is as upright as possible. So you're literally a part of maintaining democracy, and you appreciate that and understand it, don't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of a civic duty that I take pride in, as all the commissioners do. And I think, those in the executive committee and the Harrison County Election Commission also, they're the ones that kind of run most everything for elections. And so they provide the poll workers. So yeah, and an election is only as good as your poll workers or poll managers, as they're called now. I mean, they're on the front line right there at the precinct and the polling place. We've all seen them. We know the hard work they do. And so that's why I kind of wanted to come on today to encourage people to get involved. And of course, an election is only as good as your Secretary of State for your state and the integrity that he or she has. And so but it can start at the bottom with your poll managers, and because they're right there on the front line to make sure that everything is run right, and it works all the way up to the Secretary of State. So yeah, it's a whole team, it's a whole process, and the legislature, of course, comes in with new statutes and things to kind of tweak it just to make it better. So anytime they can come through with a better idea, then put it forward and let's see how it works to make this system better. Like I've always said, it's the worst system in the world. It's the worst system in the world, but it's still the best.
Yeah. No, listen, I think that I've had the opportunity to visit here on the show with Michael Watson many times. And
yeah, I've heard him.
Yeah, and the incredible respect he has for frontline poll workers, the work that they do. And that's where you're coming from, too, as a commissioner in Gulfport. I mean, he's been to every 82 counties, literally every single county. Think about the statewide official making a commitment to get to 82 counties so he can continue to talk to the people on the front line and hear from them and talk about how much they're needed. But think about how massive an effort that is across the state of Mississippi. I don't have to tell you, you already know. But you need 70 poll managers to accomplish your goal, don't you?
That's just for the general. I mean, by the time the general comes around, we used to have 19 precincts. Now it's 14 precincts. The city council decided to cut it down to 14. So it makes our job as a commission easier because with 14 precincts, we want to have at least 4 or 5 poll workers at each precinct. And in the general, both parties have already decided. So we only have to run just for the one race. And so therefore, if you have 5, that works out to be about 70. Well, for the primary, they have to have a table of poll managers to run the Democrat and one to run the Republican. And they need to have 4 or 5. So you're looking at 140 that the executive committees together have to get poll workers together there just for the city of Gulfport. So you can imagine then the Secretary of State, and having to get all of that coordinated everywhere for the whole state of Mississippi. Yeah, it can be a daunting task. But if you have good people involved, that's why I wanted to, today encourage people to get involved with being poll managers. And there are ways you can do that on the Secretary of State site also.
Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation about the importance of being involved in the democratic process locally. And we're specifically talking about the work of the Election Commission, Gulfport Municipal Election Commission in Gulfport with my friend Ferrell Alman. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with my friend Ferrell Alman, longtime Gulfportian who has FS Alman with his wife. And he's also a volunteer in the community. And one of the areas that he volunteers is on the Gulfport Municipal Election Commission. And Ferrell, I want to circle back just real quick. We talked about the need for 70 poll managers to operate in 14, used to be 17 precincts and 7 wards. When you make a change, when the city council makes a change like that, going from 17 to 14, how much confusion is there during that transition?
Well, of course, the census came out, and that's when every municipality after a census will redraw their lines for their wards. And so the city of Gulfport did that. But if you look at any city after that, when a city has to redraw their lines in any municipality in the whole country, it looks like they gave an Etch-a-Sketch to a drunk and said, here, draw up some lines for us here. Because, they're squiggly and they're growing all over the place. But, they have a plan how they do that. But it did change this time for us. Still 7 wards, but they decreased the number of precincts, which just makes it more efficient and, of course, makes it easier for us also.
Yeah, as it relates to Biloxi, for example, I had spoken out on a specific issue, and a local senator was involved in that issue. And when the new ward drawings came out, literally, we've talked about what the United States has done around some of the districts and whatever, but it was like a salamander, man. To get me moved out of where I was to a new one, someone had to put some thought to that. But that's not unusual, is it?
No, no. It happens, and so that's where I will say the city of Gulfport's done a good job of posting on their site. All the information. They've got maps up of the new lines and where they're drawn. If you just go on one of those maps, then you can pinpoint where you live and kind of see, okay, well, here's where I am now. And if you've got a question, you can easily call the city of Gulfport, call our city circuit clerk, Rashida Bell, who has done a wonderful job, which I got to say, can't run these elections without the great city clerk that we have in Rashida Bell, who's running that, along with the legal department of the city of Gulfport, especially the assistant attorney, Margaret Murdoch. Between the two of them, they are really behind the scenes on making sure that the polling precincts have the machines delivered there on time by the Department of Leisure Services and things. So it's a citywide effort too in running these elections. We just kind of are the gatekeeper that makes sure that the elections are on time and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed on that.
So in addition to the poll workers that work on election day, you actually also have what is called a resolution board that's processing absentee ballots. Those are volunteers as well, right?
Yeah. They have to be trained also, as all the poll managers have to be trained. They have to go through about a 2 to 3 hour all day training for poll managers, and the resolution board, it's about 2 hours training. And the resolution board, yes, does all the absentee ballots. It used to be that each precinct would bring in the absentee ballots. Now they are brought into the resolution board on election day, The two types of absentees, the voting in person at the city clerk's office, and then the ones that are mailed. So on election day, the resolution board, which is made up of 5 members, they come in and they're independent. They come in and take the absentee ballots that were voted in person in the clerk's office, and they make sure that they've been filled out properly, notarized or signed by the clerk, and make sure the signatures match, and then they will accept or reject them. And then if anything that they accept, they will run through the machine there at the city hall. And then they also do the absentee ballots, which are 5 days later, mailed in absentee ballots. They then process those and run those through the machine so that the final count is done then. And then after that, we certify the election.
Well, what's interesting, Ferrell, if you think about the process, the training, the number of people who are involved, the work that you guys do as it relates specifically to the voting machines. I mean, there's been lots of discussion about voting machines, but when you have voter ID, paper ballots, voting machines that have been zeroed out and certified and secured, it's kind of hard to change the result. But what you're trying to do is keep the system as tight as possible to make it very, very difficult for fraud to settle in. And there's a lot of care in this process, isn't there?
Yeah, and there, nationwide federal elections, there's always been stories and things about, the fraud that happens around the nation. But no, we run a very tight ship that's all open to the public. And so the public can come in and public notices are given of when we're testing the machines. You can come in and observe how we test the machines. You can see the tape that's run out. And before we seal it, that shows that there are 0 votes on this machine. And then we seal it up, record the numbers. They're secured. The thumb drives are secured. It's all either locked up tight or in someone's hands that's responsible, one of the commissioners or somebody with responsibility for that. So no, it's a pretty tight ship that runs through, and that's what we're here to do, is maintain the integrity of these elections.
So, Ferrell, I'm sure, let's just think of it. Let's go back to the 70 people, 75 and counting those on the resolution board, all these volunteers. From one election to the next, is there a core group that sort of stays with you, and then you have some churn on the outside of that? How much turnover do you have?
Well, again, the Harrison County Election Commission, who are elected in the 5 different districts, they run the federal election, and they kind of gather up the poll workers and have a list of those, Democrat and Republican, that the executive committees of Democrat and Republican maintain that list also. And so they kind of help run that part. And they provide the list to us, and then it's up to us to call each of them individually, make sure they can be there, make sure they've been trained within the 12 months before the election, because there is a 12-month period that your training lasts. After that, you have to be retrained. But they do that. And then another thing to it, I wanted to mention, I'm working with the Gulfport school system to be able to get youth involved. The Secretary of State's always had a program to get youth involved from 16 years and older. And so I'm working with them, and Glenn East is going to get with some folks there at Gulfport High, and we're going to get somebody to help coordinate that for the future to get youth involved in the election process. They will be able to come in and observe and kind of participate where they can, legally, just to be able to observe it. Because, I don't know if they're really teaching any civics classes. You and I had civics back in the day, but they're just not really emphasizing that. So this is a good way to get those youth that are really interested, and not just to get a day out of school free, but that are really interested in coming in and observing the process. So that's going to be in place. And if you're a parent, be on the lookout for the Gulfport High or the school system to maybe reach out and say, hey, we're going to start this program. So we're working on that right now.
Well, Ferrell, what keeps someone like you so engaged in this when you could have checked out a long time ago? I've done my duty. I'm going to let somebody else do it now. What keeps you focused on it?
Well, when George Schlegel called me to do this, I said, now, what's all involved in this? He said, well, it's every 4 years. And I said, Well, if it's every 4 years, I can handle that. But then, of course, they threw in these special elections of such as this Ward 5 one, and then the bond issue and others. So about every 2 years, can get involved and help it. But I've always believed that this country was founded on elections and to be free, and a lot of people have shed blood and sweat and tears on keeping our election process and our republic what it is today, and elections are a big part of that. And if I can do my small part to keep the integrity of these elections, along with my other commissioners and everybody else involved, from the Harrison County election to the executive committees, that's what we're here for, is to maintain the integrities of the elections, which will maintain the integrity of our republic.
Hey, so in the short time we have left, if someone's interested in doing this, volunteering their time to help you do what you just said so passionately, the reason why you're involved, how can they get more information?
The Secretary of State has a great website. If you just go to sos.ms.gov, and they have a little tab at the top called Y'all Vote. And so if you hit Y'all Vote, then it goes down to Elections 101. And under the Elections 101, it's a list of frequently asked questions. And the number 7 question is, how can I become a poll worker? It's also referred to as poll managers. They kind of use that term back and forth, but under the site it's called poll worker. And there's a form you can fill out that the Secretary of State will then forward that to the Harrison County or any county in Mississippi, to those officials there at the Harrison County Election Commission, and then they will put them in a database and then get that to the local folks that need it. So that's where I say the Harrison County Election Commission is always a big help for us in drawing on poll workers and that list they maintain with that. So yeah,
someone could just put Secretary of State, Election 101 in the search bar, and it would take them directly there.
Yeah, take you to the frequently asked questions on, and there's a form you can fill out on the SOS.
Yeah, I really want to encourage people, if you have any interest, to participate. What a great way to learn about how much care is put into making sure we have fair and honest elections. Ferrell, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Oh, great to see you again, Ricky, always. Thanks for letting me come on and talk about it.
You bet. This has been Ferrell Alman. Listen, we'll see you after this break.